Good evening for everyone that is tuning in to Carol Fife's live this evening. My name is Carol Fife. I am the council member for Oakland's District 3, and that is the district that is the topic of a lot of conversation right now that has to do with the Oakland athletics and this Waterfront Ballpark district, which is what we're going to be talking about tonight. You've probably seen, if you're paying attention to the news stories, about some recent happenings that have come up around this particular development. I had a town hall last Saturday to discuss the project moving forward and what the community had to say about it. Very, very interesting outcomes from that. It's definitely caused a lot of conversation. But today we're going to continue that conversation with our guest this evening. So tonight, if we hopefully, as he said he'd come and talk to us, we will have Tashambe of the Oakland Athletics, and we will also have Melvin Mckay from the ILWU and Elvina Wong from APEN and the Chinatown Coalition. So we're going to talk to a few of our guests tonight just about why it's important to have community voice in this process, one of the things that I've been advocating for since day one, as well as some of the other issues that have come up, like today at Rules Committee, Councilmember Gallo introduced an item to discuss some of the logistics behind this project. So I'm not sure if we have Taj with us today. He only has a few minutes to talk to us, so we're gonna hopefully be able to connect with him soon. If not,
I'm
then
here.
You are here. We don't get to see your face, sir.
Yes, yes. Hi. I'm sorry I'm off camera. I'm actually in transit. So I thought it would be best just to remain off camera. But if I can get to my destination in enough time, I'll certainly come on and join live.
Outstanding. Well, how do we know it's really you? Tell us something that we would know.
Trust and believe it is I,
Okay.
the fly
Well,
guy.
okay. Well, thank you for being with us. This was short notice, Taj, and I appreciate you making time out of your schedule to just have a conversation with Oakland, with District 3, and everybody that's paying attention to this conversation right now. So if we don't get to see you, that's fine too. But why don't you just introduce yourself? Tell us who you are. Tell us your relationship to this project. And we can go ahead and start with um, what are the ripple effects that you're hearing from the recent town hall that was held in District 3?
Sure, sure. And not to be rude and to make this as amenable as possible, I'm definitely going to turn my camera on. I'm just not in the best camera friendly space. I'm in a car, so please bear with me for a second.
That's not a problem. That's there
Okay.
you go.
All
That's
right.
fine.
Hi, is this better?
That's better. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, great. So to answer the question, thank you so much, council member, for allowing me to join you tonight. My name is Taj Tashambe. I'm an Oakland native, born and bred, and currently I'm the vice president of government and external affairs for the Oakland A's. And I've been working for the A's for just over 5 years in that capacity.
Outstanding. So Taj, you weren't at the town hall. I notified folks through my social media pages and my newsletter that I was going to have a town hall just to give updates on the community benefits aspect of this process, something that I'm deeply concerned about. It doesn't seem like we've been really clear on what that means and what it means in terms of the A's investment. And so in that town hall, we also had a conversation about a potential ballot measure for Oakland voters to decide whether this process should include taxpayer money. Have you heard anything about that?
Yes, I'm aware of the previous town hall that you held, but I have not gotten a full report of the outcome of the conversation.
There is no, there's, it's just a conversation at this particular point. But I've tried to bring community voice into this process as much as possible. I know there's pros and cons. People are like, well, the council should make this decision. This is not something that should go to voters. This would be expensive. And the A's can potentially flood the marketplace with their version of the story, and then people wouldn't know what to support. So it is right now, it's just in the conversation stages. There's nothing set in stone, but it is something to consider. Do you think it is a positive thing to get more people throughout the city of Oakland involved in and weighing in on whether or not taxpayer money should be put into this project? And is this a taxpayer funded project, or is it a fully financed project by the Oakland A's? Because there's two different stories that are going around.
Sure. Well, I'll do my best to respond to your question. I think first and foremost, it is our desire to, get something done with the city as soon as possible, and not delaying any other, action that would cause the project to, at this stage, just not have a solution and a resolution. We've been working on this project and this particular site for nearly 4 years. So I think, at this point, we should know when there's been an opportunity for many voices to be seen and heard in this process. Myself, the A's collectively have, done tremendous amounts of community outreach and engagement in East and West Oakland and everything in between. So at this stage, I think it's really up to the powers that be to make a decision on what should actually, you know, come forth.
So do you, when you say the powers that be, that's basically the city council, then the Oakland City
That's correct. Yeah, the elected leaders, the
the
elected
elected
leaders.
should make a decision, but the A's haven't said that they support or agree with or are bought into the existing term sheet. So if they're, how do we move forward if the A's haven't concretely agreed to the terms that have been put forward to date?
Well, as you know, the city and the A's, the Port of Oakland, are still negotiating, right, and finalizing aspects of the business terms for, the project and the development agreement. And I'm not completely aware of there being alignment on every issue, but there are things that I think that are opportunities for, alignment, that have been seen, I think, in some of those conversations. So I think it's fair to say that, it's a process that we have to continue to work on together, and just to inform, anyone that's watching, that that is something that we've been doing for several years, as partners. And this is a very complicated project. So I think, everything is being done with a fine tooth comb to ensure that every aspect of the community benefits process and the things that need to come out of it, as well as all of the financial terms and things of that nature that are remaining to be determined, also have the appropriate time to be vet and, you know, considered with all the possibilities that we're aware of.
So why the rush though? Why the rush to have this completed by the end of April?
Well, I think it's in alignment with what we've discussed previously as it relates to the project being in its fourth year consecutively without having a resolution. So I think there are several factors that would, preclude you from really having a known future if your process continues to drag on. And I think that's a concern of not just the A's, but any stakeholder in Oakland that sees all of its sports teams leaving town. This will be a concern to try and keep this particular team in this situation in a positive light, as well as, working collectively to ensure that we have a long-term future together. And I'm really sad, to see what has happened with our sports teams. Being an Oakland native, part of my passion to come back to work with the A's was to see the A's stay in town, because I know what it means for civic pride as well as our reputation as a global city to maintain its professional sports teams and its reputation as a city that can do big business and host major events. So I think there are ripple effects when we think about the impacts that we haven't felt yet, from losing the Warriors back to San Francisco or the Raiders to Las Vegas. We haven't felt the impact of that yet. We just watched those moving vans leave us, in the last couple of years. So, and that's happened to us before. So maybe there's a glimmer of hope that the team may come back like the Raiders once did. So
Mm.
there's just a lot of issues that I think we can work collectively on this process to solve, or at least provide some solutions and orientate those as applicable. And that's really the hope, and why I wanted to join you tonight was that I think we're all very passionate, many of us, about our community and want to ensure this is done right, but also want to make sure it's done timely and effectively with the leaders that we currently have in place, right? Because it allows us to then work with a consistent group and come to a consistent conclusion without having to invite new individuals into the process.
Well, I will say I thank you for sharing that perspective. And the individuals that I want to bring into this process are the individuals that are going to have to be responsible for the tax burden years to come into the future. And once again, this is still something that's in the conversation phases. It's not anything that's set in stone. But once again, there has been no concrete agreement on what the terms are moving forward because once again, we have not had that those concrete agreements that have come forward from the A side, and maybe they have, but I will say that in terms of myself and my position as the district representative for where this development will take place, the individual that is consistently in conversation with constituents about a host of issues, who call, email, text, um, me on a regular basis, the ballpark is not the topic that comes up. When I get phone calls from my district about being prideful about the city and about District 3, it's about having a clean city, having a safe city, having a city that's traversable by foot and by bike, to addressing the potholes and some of the other infrastructure issues that are claiming lives of residents throughout
Sure,
District 3. So those are the issues that people talk about, and they feel like they can't have pride in the city if the city is not housing its homeless population. And
sure.
so I'm just sharing with you what I'm hearing as the district representative. And to this date, I think I've had one conversation with Cavill, and you were a part of that conversation as well. And that was when I first took office. I think it was maybe in January or February of 2022. So can you share why it is that the A's management and leadership team doesn't feel the necessity of having a conversation with me?
Well, I definitely think we want to continue to have conversations with you. And, we've also participated in other events together, such as tours of Howard Terminal, with constituents and some of your other colleagues, over the last several months. So I think it's important for us to continue to have healthy dialogue and to build as many relationship bridges as possible. And as you know, council member, my service to Oakland is beyond the A's. I also serve as chair of the Jack London Improvement District. And it's very important to me that as a member of D3, from that perspective, we have a sustainable approach on how we want to protect our region as well as improve the region. And I think at this particular stage, the ballpark itself, we've discussed the possibility of that being a part of Jack London, as an extension with Howard Terminal, and how that could help revitalize Jack London Square in a way that it has never seen its potential to become a destination for East Bay as well as entire Bay Area and regional and beyond audiences to come to Oakland and enjoy our waterfront. And so when I think about our waterfront from a commercial district compared to San Francisco, it's night and day. There's over 30 miles of accessible public access along the peninsula of San Francisco, while there's less than 10% of that available in Oakland. And so when we think about this particular site, it is important to think about its impact beyond just the A's and what we're discussing in terms of a ballpark and its impact. It's also the community access that this generates, which we've never had before. And I think we are so used to not having anything like this that the opportunity for something like it sounds so unbelievable. And I just want us to get over the sticker shock of we can have this. This is ours. We deserve something like this as a city, as a community, right? And so that's my passion for it, Carol, is just to see us reaching our next evolution of economic potential as a community, to see that we won't be tomorrow's wastelands. This is an opportunity for us to be a part of progression and inclusion at a time like we've never seen this in the world, such as getting the first Black woman appointed to the Supreme Court. Like, this is another milestone. We can achieve greatness in Oakland with a project like this.
Ooh, Taj, you are selling it. Just like the Supreme. Okay, okay. I,
No,
I hear you.
no
So,
cap. I'm just saying it's a matter of we we shouldn't sell this short in terms of what it means for Oakland, right? And the community should be hard on the A's, and the city to be responsible and thinking through how everything needs to play out,
right,
right? So it's good. The agitation has to happen so change is actually made, right? And inclusion does happen. However, we do need to move forward, right? It's critical that even with the agitation and criticism of the project and you know its terminology, um, why don't we move to a place of this actually could see a benefit to our community if certain things can be done to support the community.
right.
That's
If
really it.
that's a big if though, and who's paying for it? And that's what people keep asking: who's going to pay for it? And that's one of the biggest concerns to community. Who's going to pay for it? Is it the A's or is it the taxpayers?
Right. Well, listen, we have stated that there are also major impacts to infrastructure that this project requires. And I'm just going to say really briefly on this. I'm probably the only person that has worked for the A's, the Port of Oakland, and city government as an intern all at the same time. I interned for Barbara Lee. Then I went to work 2 days a week as a special assistant to Harold Jones, who was the director of communications at the port. I used to work with Deborah Flint too. And then on special occasions, I got an opportunity to intern for the A's. So I've worked for all these organizations over my career in some capacity. And what I can say is at this stage, it's going to require everyone's participation, right? There's not a lack of skin in the game. And I think the way things have been portrayed is that this requires public money. Well, everything requires some sense of infrastructure, tax base dollars if you're doing public works. And so this is also a public works project where we're improving our infrastructure that needs to be improved anyway. We have people walking across the train tracks, right? We have people that don't have the necessary access to certain opportunities in our backyard. We need more job creation. We have to do much to improve the corridor anyway in Jack London Square. And our streets have potholes already, as you stated. If you try to drive on Howard Terminal right now with your car, you'd have to like do this puzzle, maze to avoid all the potholes to get into the site. So is that acceptable? Is that what we want our
No,
streets to look like
no,
today?
it is not acceptable. But why is that the priority over 14th Street or Broadway or Telegraph or Market Street?
It,
Why?
they're
Why?
all priorities. I think they're all priorities, and
Well, it's
but
everything is
that's
a
not the
priority.
A's responsibility to solve that. That's
Correct. It's correct. I don't disagree with you. It is not the A's responsibility to solve all of the problems in the city of Oakland. But then why should public dollars be used to prioritize that area if public dollars can be used to solve some of the other more pressing issues in the city?
well, that's a great question for you as the elected leader in this
Right.
in this
That's why.
district, right?
Exactly.
Now, if
Exactly.
I were in your shoes, I would answer the question differently. So I don't have an answer for you. That's I feel like your responsibility and your colleagues to make those determinations. We are making a proposal that we think is beneficial to the city, beneficial to the A's and our community and our fans. We want to keep the A's in town. That's what this has been about, you know, from day one. And this project really would not have any opportunity to exist if we didn't create these ideologies around the economic impact and what money goes towards. What we're just describing are essentially future dating what Oakland's value and revenue and economic impact would be if this project were to take place. And so, it's not a project that is essentially building a stadium. as the Coliseum renovations may have been done in the past, and that caused tremendous stress and anxiety and poor financial planning. I think there are scars from previous deals that have affected the consciousness around brokering sports and entertainment deals in the future and how that impacts communities. And so I think that's where the rub is, Carol. If I had to be completely transparent with you, I think Oakland has been wounded from bad deals in the past. And now I think there's an opportunity to, in some minds, right the wrongs of the past. So we have to, put this one through a different process, vice grip, so that it doesn't cause us any heartache 25, 30 years from now.
Right. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm committed to doing that. And Taj, you don't have that much time.
Right. I'm sorry.
With us. What time do you have to?
I have to actually depart in about 5 minutes.
Okay, so I'm gonna. If anyone has any questions for Taj that they would like to ask, go ahead and drop them in the chat. I see they're not necessarily questions for me, but I'll go through the questions and comments that are directed at me after Taj leaves us. So here's a question that says, why haven't the A's agreed to the city's terms yet?
Well, because every aspect of the deal has not been completely negotiated.
Okay, because every aspect has not been completely negotiated yet. So that we have to circle back to that. And I hope to be able to have some more conversations with you about this, but not just you, with the folks who are making decisions, because they make time to meet with the mayor. The mayor does not have a vote on the city council. And I think, once again, I'm going to keep saying it, that Taj, I think you are a great person. I think you're really easy to deal with. And I think it's important that there's a collective conversation with not just yourself, but with other members who are on the news and in the media consistently talking about the project, who are in dialogue with the mayor and other city staff, so that it is an equitable process, because leaving out the district council member, it is not that. And so you're going to hear me being more and more vocal about that piece as well. So I just wanted to let you know. I honestly shouldn't have to be reaching out to you all as the district representative. You all should be reaching out to me. And once again, you've been really available, but it's only been you. And I think that needs to change. So I'm just going to leave that with you.
Okay.
Are there any other questions for Taj before he has to jump and we bring on our next guests? Are the A's going to agree to the affordable housing requirements? I didn't say these are going to be easy questions, Taj.
Sure. Yes, at some point, that's a part of the negotiation process. And we're hopeful that we can reach agreement with the city when the time comes.
Okay. So it sounds like the answer is yes when the time comes?
Well, no. What I'm saying is that's the aspect that is still under negotiation. So I'm hopeful that it's negotiated.
I misheard that. I'm sorry.
Okay. It's not concluded.
How many more questions you want to take so I can be?
I can take maybe two more quick questions.
2 more quick questions. Taj, can you tell us how many jobs this project would create?
Wow, that number, let me think about it now. It's broken down into a couple of different categories. Like, one is construction jobs and like the temporary jobs. I believe it's 2,500 to 3,000 construction jobs. And then after that, with the workforce development, it's like over 7,000 jobs directly on the site. And it could expand, I think, over 15 to 20,000 with the impact.
And how will this impact the port workers, the longshoremen's jobs? Because that's also been contention.
I'm not aware of any direct impact to loss of longshoremen jobs.
Okay. And I think we have one more question. Yeah. Are there any more questions? Tanya? Are we good? Taj, I think that's all we have. Did we do okay this evening?
Yes, we did. I'm sorry, my camera just went off for a second. Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate you sharing this opportunity with me and just giving us a chance to talk, and let's continue the dialogue. I'm here. I heard what you said. You like to hear from the A's more directly, and I think we'd love to continue to develop that however we need to do it. If it's a weekly conversation or an update of some sort, let's have that conversation.
Yeah, I think that's important. And those conversations, they won't be public, but I will be sharing with the public the outcomes of those conversations because I am going to fight for my district and what's best for my district in the same way that the A's are fighting for the best deal for their franchise, right? So my interest is in the long-term benefit of especially the people who are living in the immediate area, right? But the city as a
Right.
whole. So, and I don't apologize for that. I'm going to fight for them. So,
Well, great
yeah.
job. Great job
All right.
fighting for them. And we appreciate you and this opportunity. So hopefully we can do it again.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate your time tonight.
Okay. Cheers. All
All
right. Bye bye.
right. Okay, so that was just a quick check-in with Taj Tashambe of the Oakland Athletics, and he said he's willing to come back. And I'm gonna have my Vaseline on the next time he comes, but it's okay. So right now we're gonna hear from two more stakeholders in this process. We have Elvina Wong and Melvin Mckay. If you all can just give us a second and introduce yourself and tell us what organization you represent and the interests you represent and what this project means to your base. And we can go ahead and start with Elvina.
Thanks, Councilmember Five, for having me. My name is Elvina Wong. I'm with the Asian Pacific Environmental Network. We are members of the Chinatown Coalition and also the Chinatown Working Group that includes also the Chinatown Chamber on Howard Terminal issues. One of the main things is that the areas drawn around the map really includes West Oakland, Jack London, Old Oakland. And while the city has acknowledged multiple times the impacts of Chinatown, many of the actual documents don't include it. So we've created a working group to address some of the gaps that we see. I also participated in the CBA process as a steering committee member for the environmental topic cohort. And so I'm pretty familiar with all the different conversations that have happened around this project and potential CBAs and the lack of agreement to many, many things, even though there have been hours of community engagement technically.
Thank you for sharing that, Elvina. And Melvin, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what organization you're from and what this project means to your base? Melvin, I think you're muted.
Hey,
There we
now,
go.
can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Councilmember Fife. I'm the former president of ILW Local 10, San Francisco, Oakland, and we have a rough of about 2,000 members in the ILW. We have 1,000 casuals, about 400 Class B. This project here, when I started in the opposition of them building a stadium, moreover, condominiums on Howard Terminal, this would bring havoc to the Longshore Division. This would make the people in the community of Oakland go elsewhere for their goods. When I started this project, they had an EIR at the Oakland Coliseum before they went to Laney College to build a new structure there. They went in and they asked for the planning commission to give them a permit. They got it. One of the things that the people in Oakland do not understand as of today, they will be footing the bill if they build 3,000 condominiums on industrial land. It's not so much as the Coliseum. In 55 acres, 3,000 condominiums, a Coliseum, and a hotel is a bit much. They got 170 acres over on Hagenberger. They have transportation, they have BART. If they decide they wanted to build a Coliseum, and that's their conjecture, their remnants are the beautiful Coliseum on the waterfront. They could build the same Coliseum where they're located at today, where they have 50% interest. They are not thinking about the people in the city of Oakland. This is a rush to judgment on the Oakland A's and not caring about the people in Oakland. They don't. It's all about money. It's a real estate game, period. I don't know why they would continually go to Las Vegas to talk about purchasing land uh, to build a Coliseum there if they were so interested in building a Coliseum in Oakland. It's all about the condominiums. Once people purchase those condominiums, ILW, we work 24 hours a day. We make an awful lot of noise. When the lids come off the vessels, they come off pretty loud. The people who buy these condominiums will come back to the same city council asking for a noise ordinance. And likely they would get it because they will be taxpayers in the city of Oakland. This is a bad project. The land that Todd's talk about, the infrastructure, the degradation of the land, the water tide, the tide table that they're not thinking about, the global economy, the global economy right now, we're looking at the ice in the Atlantic. The ice is melting very quickly. Okay, and that's giving more water to our waterways. But the Oakland A's are not thinking rationally, and the people in Oakland gotta wake up. If they want to put more bills in taxes, it will happen. They're talking about a 66-year lease, but they only want to stay here for 25 years. Who foots the rest of the bill? People are not thinking. You don't need condominiums on industrial land. I'll say it 4 and 5 times. It will not mix. And where would you fit if these were employees of the Oakland A's? 7,000 people for construction and up to 20,000 people in 55 acres. It will be bumper to bumper people. That will never work either. The foot traffic for the trains, the foot traffic for the people that work in that area. Where were the people in this area once they start construction? What about the small businesses on Second and Third Street? They won't be able to go to work. They won't be able to get their goods. There will be no parcels going to them because the trucks, when they start unloading cement, asphalt, anything of a building trade, they'll have nowhere to get their goods. Where will they park? People are not thinking. If they were certain about building a ballpark and condominiums, they got enough land over where the Coliseum is right now. I don't know if you guys remember, there was a white front, there was a home base, there was a Malibu Raceway over there. They're all gone. They can build there. They can have a state of the art, whatever they want, where they're located today. State of the art. If their remnants show what they show, and they're truly rooted in Oakland, they would build for the people for their gains right there. And they were serious about affordable homes. They would build affordable homes where they're located, next to their ballpark in Oakland on Hagenberg. These people do not have to come down to Jack London Square to build anything on industrial land. More importantly, we talked about the infrastructure of potholes in West Oakland, Broadway, Grand Avenue. There's $280 million given by the state of California to Oakland. They haven't used any of that money to do the potholes yet. And I know that Mayor Schaaf is waiting for this Coliseum to be built with some of this infrastructure money, which is stupid. It only goes into one sector. What about everybody else in the city of Oakland? They're not thinking out of the box. And then you have people, that thinks about jobs, short-term jobs. How come the Mandela Training Center is not full of uh, the uh, the students there right now? The apprentice that's going to be in the trade. Why aren't this Mandela? This is 4 years in the makings. And if you're going to hire the inner city youth out of Oakland from West Oakland, that training center should have been full of youth right now to start their apprenticeship. Okay, that's for electrical, drywall, concrete, steel, whatever they're going to do. They should have started this 4 years ago.
Well,
But I don't
Melvin,
see this as being a win-win for Oakland. Yes.
you said you don't see this as a win-win for Oakland, but I'm going to ask Elvina to chime in here too. What do you see this as a win-win? And if not, why not?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really tough, right? Like, we're talking about a ballpark of 35,000 seats, plus an event venue of another, I think it's 10,000, plus, a bunch of retail and a bunch of housing. So you're having people come in on event days, not just ball games, right? Like other events and concerts and conferences, whatever, almost every day, because they probably plan out to have events as much as possible to generate revenue. You're having thousands of people coming in every day, plus thousands of people working there and living there, where currently there's not a lot. And so you're adding thousands of people, of traffic, of congestion into this area. I think that what we're hoping for is the best deal possible, which means the most affordable housing, the most opportunities for local residents to get permanent temporary jobs, the most opportunities to pay for the things that we deserve and have been lacking resources in for so long. And I think the challenge is like, what is taxpayer dollar and not taxpayer dollar, and what are projected revenues and not, right? And what is agreed upon and not. And it's interesting. Taj was talking about how Oakland was wounded by bad projects in the past. He talks about that as if the A's were not also a part of that bad deal in the past with the Coliseum and East Oakland. What have all those teams done in that neighborhood and in that district? What have they contributed to? There's nothing stopping them from contributing and generating that type of infrastructure, resources, development into East Oakland right now, and they haven't, and they still haven't. We're still on the hook for paying out the Raiders' debt from back in 1995. That's taxpayer dollars, and that's what the taxpayer dollars would do for Howard Terminal. So in all the ways that it's set up right now, it looks like a bad deal. I think the community has come together to really outline like what would be a win for the community. And that looks like as much affordable housing as possible. I really respect Mr. Melvin's points around having housing in such an industrial area. It's usually not a good mix. But if housing must be built, it has to be deeply affordable and for our unhoused community, right? It has to be for our working class families, both on site and off site. We need to make sure that folks have access to jobs, people of color have access to jobs, our immigrant and refugee communities, low wage workers, and Oakland residents have these jobs, that they're not just jobs given to folks outside of the city, right? And that the environmental impacts, both during construction, post-construction, are good for the community. West Oakland and Chinatown suffer some of the highest rates of air pollution already, just from freeway traffic and congestion. I think in some studies around the race and disparity report, it shows that Chinatown has some of the highest rates of air pollution because we have the Webster Posey Tunnel. We have a bunch of one-way streets that get congested at multiple times throughout the day that also create a lot of danger. So we have the highest rates of vehicle pedestrian deaths and accidents in the neighborhood of anywhere else in the city. And we have all the freeways cutting us, very similar to the dynamics in West Oakland as well. And so there's already so much that we need to do to take care of our health and our community and our environment in that way that needs to be built in on top of whatever new development is coming on. And there's so many other pieces that make it feel really risky. And again, kind of like what Mr. Melvin was saying is like, if they were serious about this and making it work, why would they be going to Las Vegas and trying to court them there? Why won't they agree to the term sheet, right? The terms we've already set out by the city standards what they need to meet, and they're not agreeing to it. That's as open and transparent as you can be in a negotiation about what you want. I will say on the community side, we don't think that the city's term sheet goes far enough. I think that there's more we should be asking for. The city deserves more, our communities deserve more, and our council members like you and also Council President Bass have been fighting for more. And that's the standard that we need to set. And so all this conversation about the city's wishy-washy or council members aren't like agreeing to things, it's like, it's all spelled out right there. And you haven't even agreed to the base terms. So why are you saying that there's not enough certainty? You know what we want from you. They've listened to us multiple times, and I agree, they have had hours of listening sessions, but they have no commitments. They have not yet once said, that's a great idea. I'm going to put it in the project for certain. And that's the thing that we have no certainty on for the community. We're taking the hugest gamble, right? There's a projected potential $450 million in the CBA that's going to come over the course of 66 years, right? And when will we actually start seeing that money come in? All of that is going to be fronted by our taxpayer dollars or paid back through our taxpayer dollars that we wouldn't have to spend on this if we didn't have a development there, but instead could spend our taxpayer dollars on the problems that we're already facing. So I feel like those are some of the pieces that make it really hard to say, like, is this a definitively good or definitively bad project? I think from the Chinatown perspective and in conversation with other folks, there's still a lot of hope that it could be good, that it could work out. But it only will work out if they can meet the standards that we set. And so I think that puts us all in a challenging place.
Okay, so what do you all say to the folks who are just like, no matter what, keep the A's in Oakland at all costs by any means necessary? If they don't want to produce affordable housing, it doesn't matter. If they don't want to agree to the terms set by the city with the current term sheet, just give them what they want so they stay here, so we keep our last sports team.
I say, keep them in Oakland at the Coliseum. It's a win-win for the Oakland A's, for the people of so-called affordable housing. And I believe in living wage homes, not affordable, because I don't know what's affordable today. But I can tell you, if the A's were really serious, they would start their apprentice program on their infrastructure at the Coliseum where they're located to show all of their patrons that they're serious about staying in Oakland. They're rooted in Oakland. They have more property than they'll ever have. That's the largest piece of property that Oakland has right now, other than Oak Knoll up on Mountain Boulevard. Okay? And now they're not going to go on Mountain Boulevard. When they went down to Laney, there wasn't no room there for them. But if they stay and they want to be in Oakland, keep the A's here. Try to convince the A's to build where they are. If they wanted to, they could have started a Coliseum built off 4 years ago, where the Malibu Raceway changed the atmosphere, changed the ballpark to where it's looking at there's the estuary on that side over there as it is. They could have turned the Coliseum any kind of way they wanted to. Okay, but if they were truly rooted in Oakland, they would do that for all their patrons to show them if it's going to be 25 years or 66 years. If we're going to do something for the city of Oakland, we'll do it where we're at because we got more property. And the people that work at the Coliseum today don't have to fight for the jobs if it was to go to West Oakland. And the West Oakland people take those jobs. Those jobs were out for bid 50 years ago. There's some people that's been there 30 years. They don't want to lose their jobs. I don't want to see people lose jobs, period. They can enhance and add on where they're located. They have parking structure. They have, like I say, they have the airport, they have BART, and they have AC transit right there.
But Melvin,
they're not going to get it.
The A's have said countless times that the Coliseum site is not viable. So I'm not exactly.
I also just want to add the A's own half of the Coliseum right now already. They already bought it. The city owns the other half. They bought their half from the county. So they already, the thing is, the A's is the Fisher family, billionaires that own Gap and Banana Republic and Old Navy and other things and promote charter schools, privatization, right? Like the A's own a lot. They have a lot. They're real estate developers. And there's already talks about potentially bringing other sports teams back into the Coliseum. So it would suck to lose the A's. I want them to stay. Everyone wants them to stay, but not at the cost of what the community actually needs and deserves, right? And not to get into debates with folks, but folks are saying like, oh, they already agreed to affordable housing. It's a law. They have not agreed. You just heard Taj say, we don't know yet what our affordable housing contributions will be. Yes, there are legal requirements, right? But as we're seeing in the Community Benefits Fund contributions, they're talking about paying money in lieu of fees. That means they don't pay their legal requirement and instead are just doing something else. But what we're expecting is that they meet the legal requirement and go above and beyond. That's what community benefits are. They can afford it. And also, that's what we should expect as Oakland. We need to treat ourselves like we're worth something, that we are worth more than just the bare minimum. And that's what they need to put in. So I just wanted to add that bit.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Elvina. And I do want to touch a little bit on some of the things that have recently come through council. Today, council member Noel Gallo brought to the Rules Committee this morning a potential scheduling item to have a discussion or a workshop on the A's opening up their books, talking about the funds that are necessary to carry out this project over time. He asked a series of questions, and that was one of the things that came to council today. We've also had a little bit of discussion about a potential ballot initiative for the voters to decide how they want their tax dollars to be spent over the course of this development. So what do you all think about those things?
I think that's great.
I think the people should have a voice, not 12 people, not 16 people, not for 4 million people. These people have common sense. And if you put it on a ballot initiative, they'll make the right choice for their sector. Good, bad, or indifference. When the vote goes out, it's a democratic process. We'd have to live with it. That's the way it
Yeah.
goes.
Yep, I believe that. I believe if the voters are smart enough to choose some of the many other things that they've voted on over the years, they're smart enough to decide how they want their tax dollars to be spent. There was a recent comment by the mayor that this will cost taxpayers $1 million to put this initiative on the ballot, and I just wanted to clarify that that's not true. If there is a referendum and it's one question, ballot initiatives tend to increase in cost when there are the legal analysis that's necessary, the argument, the rebuttal, the printing costs, the translation, all of those things, and then the costs for staff time that are not going into that. And I will say that with Measure AA, it was a lot of money that went into that particular ballot initiative. But with a referendum with one
I remember.
question, it is not that expensive. It is not $1 million. So I did want to correct that. And I think it's interesting when people want democracy to work, it's for their benefit. But when it is really to get the input of a large mass of people, then democracy is, not something that we want to utilize. So I just wanted to clarify that misinformation that was given out that this ballot initiative would cost $1 million is not accurate. It's not true at all. And I do want to take a couple questions because I know a lot of the A's fans see this as very demoralizing to even have this conversation about democracy and letting voters in Oakland decide. That is unfortunate. I know there are people who have called for me to be removed from office because I'm attempting to get the voices of as many people as possible involved in the process. So be it. You all, like, I'm sorry that you're that sensitive about things. I'm really truly trying to get what's best for District 3, as well as the adjoining neighborhoods involved in the process, because the reality of this country is the more money you have, the more influence that you have. And I think the only way that we battle big money that billionaires have is through democracy. And that is the reality. And oftentimes you don't have elected officials who are in positions of decision making that are not bought and sold. And so I'm going to represent that voice. That is the voice for many, many more people than myself. And if that comes through a referendum, so be it. But I will fight once again for my district, as I just said with Taj. So you all, why don't we take a couple questions? I will say I don't know if you remember during the presidential election, Bernie Sanders, when he was running for president, got called out all of the time because of Bernie Bros. The Bernie Bros, they were saying, are super aggressive and and like they want to fight everybody. They're super, antagonistic. I'm finding a little bit of that sentiment with A's fan. They talk about the clothes that I wear and how I look, and then I'm stupid and lazy and all these things. So I'm going to try to protect you all from those types of comments, but I do want to take a couple other questions if that's okay. So Tanya, if you could help us with some of the questions from the chat, I would appreciate that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Elvina. You were going to say something.
Oh, I was just going to say, if it was taking a minute to bring up a question, was just for folks to remember, a report just came out that over the pandemic, workers lost about $3.7 trillion in wages, right? From shutdowns, impacts, all that stuff. Meanwhile, during the pandemic, also $3.9 trillion was raised in profits for big corporations. So all this boohooing around like we can't expect them to do everything is true. One organization or corporation should not pay for everything and all the society's ailments. But if you're making bank while all of us are suffering, you should pay more. Anyways, but there's a question from the chat.
Yes. And so this question is, there's a statement and a question. This is an opportunity to achieve benefits for Oakland. What other huge partner does the city have that will commit to building affordable housing? Well, there is no commitment to build affordable housing. Just so we're clear, the deal and the term sheet that was offered is a baseline for what all developers are supposed to contribute to affordable housing in the city of Oakland. The Oakland A's have not agreed to that. So let's be clear. And I'm not sure why that talking point keeps being regurgitated. The A's have not committed to that. And second of all, there are many developers, especially in District 3, who have projects in the pipeline to build affordable housing. I just talked to one this afternoon that's building a project in the Uptown, two actually. There were 5 proposals on that acre site that's next to the Fox Theater in downtown Oakland. 5 proposals for hundreds and hundreds of units of completely affordable housing, 100% affordable for some of the project proposals. So there are many developers and many organizations who want to come to Oakland. So I'm not sure if that answers the question, but to be clear, the A's have not agreed to that.
And just to add that there are other market rate developers who have come and built in Oakland that have agreed to pay to the legal limit of either contributing to affordable housing trust funds or building on site, and have agreed to do more than that. And they're smaller developers than the A's. So that's already a precedent. And if you look at the track record before the pandemic, when we were kind of in our economic boom, the only thing that was developing and getting approved were market rate housing and less for affordable housing. We're in the general plan update right now to update the housing element, and it has shown that Oakland has underperformed in developing our affordable housing, but overperformed in market rate housing. And we're struggling through moderate income, which I think is more like living wage income housing, right? That we don't have enough of that in the city. And we didn't meet our goals from the last time we set them. And now that we're in this stage in 2022, setting the goals for the next 10 years, it's really going to be about how do we build more and get more. And that there are other partners, both 100% affordable housing developers and market rate housing developers who are down to pay the fees and go above and beyond. So I don't know why the A's are trying to act like they're getting a short end of the deal when there are other smaller developers who've done more than them.
Right. So thank you for sharing that, Elvina. Do we have any other questions? Because we're rounding close to our end time of 7:30. Well, it's so I'm going to read some of the comments that we have here. So the Rooster 3K is saying that this is a stalling tactic so you can leverage your position. I'm not sure what the position is, but if you're saying that this is a stalling tactic to get more people to weigh in on how their tax dollars will be spent, I guess you can call it that. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a stalling tactic. I think it's trying to push the A's leadership and management to actually consider the voices of the impacted communities. We've heard from Chinatown about the congestion and the environmental impacts that this will have. Elvina spoke of that today. We've heard from the Seaport community and what represented here today, the ILWU and the impacts to the port. We actually heard from the Seaport Advisory Committee that the port needs to stay industrial so that it has the space to grow. We've heard from Union Pacific, AC Transit. We've heard from several transportation agencies that are saying that they're not clear on how this will impact their industries moving forward. We've heard from environmental groups like the Sierra Club and others who are also saying that there more needs to be done. So I wouldn't necessarily call it a stalling tactic, but I would say, hey, all of these stakeholders are giving concrete, tangible reasons for needing more information, more transparency, more clarity, and more investment. This community benefits agreement that we've been talking about, that 2 years people worked on, investing their unpaid labor and unpaid time into contributing to, has been completely disregarded. And on top of that, it's a community benefits agreement that the taxpayers will pay, right? It's not even something that the A's are invested in contributing to. So, I mean, you can call it what you want, but that's where I'm coming from. It's really the stakeholders who are not being recognized in this process. Elvina?
I mean, and I think we get really focused on the A's and the stadium, but I think folks also have to remember this is a mega development deal. We're talking about 3,000 housing units, a hotel, an extra performance center, 1.8 million square feet of commercial and retail space, in addition to a 35,000 seat stadium, right? So it's not just about the A's staying as a stadium. It's about this mega development that is coming into the neighborhood. And I think the arguments have been around like, well, it'll generate more revenue, which I think is what we're hoping for and what we want to try to leverage. And also like, that's also money that should be going to all parts of the city. And I definitely think the most impacted areas should get a larger percentage, but to direct it all there, I think is really challenging for the rest of the city.
Elvina, let's stay with that for a second, because I do hear that comment a lot. Like, this is going to benefit the entire city. It's going to generate revenue for Oakland. But we're talking about revenue being generated for decades in one area of the city. It is a waterfront district. Some people are calling it the Piedmont of West Oakland. So it will be a city inside of a city. And we hope potentially that the people who are coming to engage in this waterfront boutique district might go outside of the bounds and the boundaries of this area and buy a pair of jeans or a cup of coffee in a different part of the city. But as it stands with this current tax structure, the funds that are generated will stay there, which will generate, and because the majority of the housing units that would be developed there are market rate units, those would be wealthy individuals that are living, working potentially in that particular area, maybe in other places like San Francisco or what have you. And that revenue stays inside of that district. So I think it's important to also articulate that we're not talking about money that's going to go into the general fund. We are talking about money that's going to stay inside of that enhanced infrastructure financing district, not fund the rest of all of the needs that Oakland has. And we know there are so many. So it is the job of elected officials to look at the needs of our city and find out where should we prioritize things. Because I'm telling you right now, from working in the city of Oakland, a lot of the things that we need done right now, today, can't be done because we're focused on how to make the A's want to stay here. So when we're talking about the Department of Transportation needing to address some of the issues like on Frontage Road or in other parts of the city, they're looking at how they create a $10 million department to address the infrastructure needs of a potential development. And so that they're already understaffed. So that means today their staff is spending time, which is taxpayer dollars, on a ballpark that doesn't even exist yet. And I want to respect what you said, Elvina, because it's not just a ballpark. A ballpark is 1/12 of this development, right? Mm-hmm. There's all of these other things that are talking about being developed in that particular small geographic area that are much bigger than just a ballpark. But we have to consider all of the time and energy that the city staff today, 2022, March of this particular month, are spending on this project. And so that's already a use of taxpayer dollars. My interest is finding out, do the residents of Oakland, not Pleasanton, not Walnut Creek, not Berkeley, San Leandro, or wherever else in the Bay Area, but the residents of Oakland, do they want to continue to spend taxpayer dollars on this project? That's what I'm trying to ascertain. And I believe that's my job.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and it is 7:30.
Work.
So I'm going to give you all a couple minutes to just close out and share some of your comments with us. And we're going to wrap it up and call it a day. So I started with you, Elvina. So Melvin, I'm going to start with you on the closeout.
Well, I really appreciate having me here, Carol. This is one thing that we have to do, as Todd says, keep the dialogue going. One of the things that the city of Oakland has to understand, it's not just the West Oakland that will be taxed, it's all of Oakland. And they should understand affordable housing don't mean for them. It means for the people that can afford them. And if people don't think out of the box, they'll be lost. They'll be gobbled up by the giants. As I stated once before, if they were serious about hiring residents of Oakland, the Mandela Training Center should have started a long time ago to give the inner city youth an opportunity to get a trade up under their belt, if that's what they wanted to do. I don't believe that, but that's my take on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Melvin. Elvina?
So many things to say. I think when all of this was being first proposed, the mayor was so certain that we would not be using taxpayer dollars, and everything that is being formed and formulated right now is exactly that. And I just don't think she's keeping her word on that. And I think that we do need to keep pushing as a city and community to fight for the things that we deserve. We deserve good quality, affordable housing. We deserve good living wage jobs that can support us staying in the city. And we deserve to have our small businesses thrive and featured in any new development and project and be a part of the conversation and not outcompeted by other new developments and projects like that. And there's so much that we have to offer if we actually partner and collaborate. And that doesn't mean just sitting and bearing through a couple hours of us talking at you, but actually thinking through that's a really great idea. How can I work that into my plan? How can I restructure some of these conversations to make that work? And I don't feel like I've seen that. It's been a lot of, here's the plan, here's the design, here's what we're going to do. Either follow it or we're out and we're going to move away. And that doesn't feel like a partner. That doesn't feel like collaboration. And we deserve better, and we deserve so much more. And just a small point, I think there was a lot of confusion around why is Chinatown being named so much? Is Chinatown, getting all these extra benefits? And it's Chinatown has been excluded in so many ways in so many of the public documents outside of just being named and recognized. And what we're fighting for is to have some of the same authority and oversight that West Oaklanders, Jack London folks, and Old Oaklanders will have. And I think in partnership with a lot of the community in West Oakland, we also know that there's a lot of West Oaklanders who are also very displeased with the project, who are very confused about the CBA, who also feel like the A's need to contribute their own money, and also feel like the EIR didn't officially and formally address all the traffic and transportation concerns that West Oaklanders have. And that is technically already incorporated and encapsulated into the public documents that have been released. And so I think, Chinatown will continue to name the things that are really unique to our neighborhood, but we do that in relationship with and in solidarity with West Oakland and East Oakland, really following the lead of those folks who are going to be most impacted, and knowing that, we're not trying to get the lion's share of anything, but we do think we know that we're going to be just as impacted as everyone else. And so what is our fair share of getting to be a part of this project, and recognizing that West Oakland is the most impacted and will be having to live through these big development projects for the long haul. And so how can we in Chinatown and West Oakland and East Oakland actually unite and stand together and ask for the things that we all deserve? And I think those are around housing, jobs, small business support, and healthy environment that isn't blocked off by choking transportation congestion and air pollution.
Well, I definitely appreciate your commentary, Elvina, as well as you, Melvin. Thank you for sharing your perspectives as well as the perspectives of the organizations that you represent. I think it's clarified in an analogy that I heard from someone this evening that said, expecting Oakland residents to pay their tax money on this project is like buying a luxury sports car and without having food on the table. So there are so many priorities that we need. And I think a ballpark would be amazing, right? But it's not about whether it gets done, it's how we do things. And right now, we are missing some very, very critical steps, very critical information. And I hope that we're able to move in a way that includes the voices of the community that is directly impacted in this process. And I'm not talking about fans, because fans are important and your emotional connection to a team is important. But I believe that a clean, safe city can create more pride and opportunities for further development than any one individual sports team. And I'm just going to keep listening to people, keep reading all of these binders of information. Although I know a lot of you all think that I don't, I do, because this is my job. And I know the mayor said that we get paid a lot of money to do this work and make our own decisions. But the reality is the A's are paying for the consultants that are giving us and feeding us the information. So I have to do my own independent search for what's true so that I can make the best decision necessary. But I still want to hear as many voices that are participatory in this project and that will be impacted by the project. And that means the residents of Oakland and District 3. So thank you all for being with me this evening. And I hope to stay in conversation with you as well as people who disagree. I think that's what creates the best outcome. I don't want everybody to agree with me. I'm not the A's. I'm not the folks that are just like, I only want to talk to the people who have my perspective. I want to hear from everybody so that it informs the best outcome. That's different than the fanatics who are just saying by any means necessary, do what it takes to keep them here. That's not going to give us the best project. That doesn't put us in a strong position of negotiating. We got to negotiate what's best for the city. With that said, thank you for coming this evening. Thank you for tuning in this evening, and we'll be back with you in another week and a half. Peace, everybody.
Thank you.